They never know when to quit. Take Marcus Kane, for instance. Standing there on the observation deck of his battered cargo hauler, the vagrant's dream, watching the impossible city of Nexus Prime grow larger through the reinforced transparent steel. Most sane beings would have turned around by now. Most sane beings would have taken one look at that massive orbital station, bristling with enough firepower to crack a moon, and decided that maybe retirement wasn't such a bad idea after all. But Marcus Kane? Well, he just took another sip of his synthetic coffee, grimaced at the taste, and muttered something unprintable about Galactic Federation bureaucrats. Captain, his navigator, a wiry woman named Tessa Varga, called from her station. We are getting hailed by station control. They want to know our business. Marcus set down his cup and straightened his worn leather jacket. The thing had seen better decades, much like its owner. Tell them we are here for the humanitarian relief mission. Got medical supplies for the refugee camps. Tessa's fingers danced across her console. They're asking for cargo manifests and authorization codes. Give them what we have got. Marcus walked over to the main display, watching as smaller ships buzzed around the massive station like insects around a lamp. And Tessa, make sure our friends in the hold stay quiet for the next few hours. Down in the cargo bay, pressed between shipping containers filled with actual medical supplies, 12 human refugees try to make themselves as small as possible. They've been running for 3 months now, ever since the Hegemony decided that humans made excellent slave labor for their deep space mining operations. These particular humans had made the mistake of saying no. Elena Vasquez, a former mining engineer from the Kepler colonies, whispered to the woman beside her, "How much longer do you think we will be stuck in here?" The woman, Dr. Rachel Torres, checked the small chronometer on her wrist. Kane said we'd dock within the hour. Then it's just a matter of getting U.S. past station security. And if we get caught? Rachel's expression hardened. Then we fight. We have come too far to give up now. Meanwhile, in the upper levels of Nexus Prime, Admiral Keth-Var of the Hegemony Navy was having what humans might call a very bad day. The reptilian officer's scales had taken on a particularly dark shade of green, which anyone familiar with the species would recognize as a sign of extreme irritation. "Explain to me again," he hissed to his aide, a nervous little mammalian creature called Pipnix, how 12 human slaves simply vanished from our most secure facility. Pipnix's whiskers twitched anxiously. "Sir, the investigation suggests they had inside help. Someone with access to the security systems and the transport schedules." Inside help. Keth-Var's claws tapped against his desk. From whom? These humans have been in our custody for over a year. Who would risk execution to help them? That's what we are trying to determine, sir. The Admiral stood and walked to his office's massive window, looking out at the endless stream of traffic moving through the station's docking bays. Somewhere out there, 12 humans were probably plotting their next move. And if there was one thing Keth-Var had learned about humans during his long career, it was that they were absolutely terrible at accepting defeat. "Double the security sweeps," he ordered, "and put a bounty on their heads. A substantial one. Someone will talk." What the Admiral didn't know was that someone was already talking. In a dimly lit bar 3 levels down, a human woman named Jazz Freeman was having a very interesting conversation with a Thorian mercenary. The Thorian, a blue-skinned giant called Boomcrix, was nursing what appeared to be a small barrel of fermented something or other. "So let me get this straight," Boomcrix rumbled in his deep voice. "You want me to help you smuggle weapons to the refugee camps? Weapons that will undoubtedly be used against Hegemony forces. And you're offering me what, exactly?" Jazz leaned back in her chair, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. She was the kind of woman who looked like she'd been born in a gunfight and raised by pirates. Which, as it happened, wasn't too far from the truth. "Information," she said simply, "about the Hegemony's new mining operation in the Veil Nebula. The one they've been keeping very, very quiet." The Thorian's 4 eyes widened slightly. "That operation is classified at the highest levels." "I know. I used to work security for it." Jazz took a sip of her drink, something blue and probably poisonous to most species. before I decided that maybe I didn't want to spend my life helping slavers exploit entire star systems. Boomcrix was quiet for a long moment, weighing his options. On one hand, dealing with human rebels was usually a fast track to an early grave. On the other hand, information about secret hegemony operations could be worth a fortune to the right buyers. The weapons, he said finally. What kind are we talking about? Nothing fancy. Small arms, some explosives, maybe a few heavy rifles. Just enough to give people a fighting chance. And the delivery? Jazz's smile widened. That's where things get interesting. Back on the Vagrant's Dream, Marcus was dealing with his own complications. The station controller had cleared them for docking, but their assigned bay was uncomfortably close to a Hegemony patrol vessel. The kind with very sophisticated scanning equipment and very suspicious crew members. "Captain," Tessa called out, "I'm reading elevated security protocols around Bay 12. Looks like they are running random cargo inspections." Marcus cursed under his breath. "Can we request a different bay? I can try, but it might look suspicious. More suspicious than getting caught with a hold full of escaped refugees." Tessa had to admit he had a point. She opened a channel to station control. "Nexus Control, this is Vagrant's Dream. We are showing some engine irregularities. Request permission to dock at a maintenance bay instead." There was a pause. Then, "Vagrant's Dream, you are cleared for Bay 7. Maintenance crews will be standing by." Marcus let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Bay 7 was in the civilian sector, far from the military patrols. Sometimes it paid to have a ship that looked like it might explode at any moment. As they approached their berth, none of them noticed the small, sleek ship that had been following them since they'd entered the system. Its pilot, a scarred human woman named Alex Storm, had been tracking the Vagrant's Dream for 3 days now. She wasn't working for the Hegemony, though. She had her own reasons for wanting to find those missing refugees. Alex had been a Hegemony prisoner herself, once upon a time. She'd spent 2 years in their labor camps before managing to escape during a transport accident. Now she made her living as a freelance operative, taking jobs that usually involved making life difficult for various galactic governments. But this job was personal that she'd recognized one of the names on the refugee list, Dr. Rachel Torres. They'd been cellmates for 6 months before Alex's escape. Rachel had saved her life more than once, sharing food when Alex was too sick to work, covering for her when the guards came around asking questions. Now it was time to return the favor. As the Vagrant's Dream settled into its docking berth, Alex was already moving through the station's maintenance tunnels. She'd memorized the layout weeks ago, along with the security rotation schedules and the blind spots in the surveillance network. It was amazing what you could accomplish when you really wanted to hurt the people who'd hurt you. I in the cargo hold. The refugees were getting restless. They'd been cooped up for days, and the stress was starting to show. Elena Vasquez was pacing back and forth in the small space between containers, her hands clenched into fists. "We should have fought them from the beginning," she muttered. "Should have died fighting instead of running like rats." Dr. Torres looked up from the medical scanner she'd been examining. "And accomplish what, exactly? Get ourselves killed and let them win. At least we'd have gone down with some dignity. Dignity doesn't help anyone if you are dead." Torres set the scanner aside and fixed Elena with a steady gaze. "We are not running because we are cowards. We are running because we are the only ones who know what they are really doing out there. The mining operations, the slave labor, the systematic destruction of entire colonies. Someone has to survive to tell the story." Elena stopped pacing. "And what if no one listens? Then we make them listen." Torres's voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. "Whatever it takes." Above them, Marcus was dealing with the docking procedures, trying to look like just another cargo hauler making a routine delivery. The station officials were thorough, but not particularly suspicious. After all, humanitarian relief ships came through Nexus Prime all the time. It was one of the Hegemony's favorite public relations gestures, allowing aid to reach the refugee camps while quietly making sure that most of it never actually arrived. "All your paperwork seems to be in order," Captain Kane, the docking supervisor, a bored-looking insectoid, clicked as he reviewed Marcus's manifest. "You are clear to begin unloading." Bay 7 has standard cargo handling equipment available. Appreciated, Marcus replied. How long until we can get clearance to depart? Standard turnaround is 6 hours. Unless you are planning an extended stay. No, just want to drop off the supplies and get back on course. Got another delivery to make in the Centauri system. The supervisor made a note on his tablet. Very well. Dock fees will be automatically deducted from your account. Welcome to Nexus Prime. As the official left, Marcus allowed himself a small smile. So far, so good. Now came the hard part, getting 12 very wanted people off his ship and into the refugee camps without anyone noticing. In a station with approximately 50,000 residents and more surveillance equipment than a prison planet. What could possibly go wrong? In her hidden position 3 decks above, Jazz Freeman was asking herself the same question. She'd been watching the vagrant's dreams approach through her portable scanner, and something about the whole situation felt off. The ship's manifest listed medical supplies for the refugee camps, but the cargo distribution seemed wrong. Too much weight concentrated in specific areas, not spread out like you'd expect for medical equipment. Either Captain Kane was smuggling something much more valuable than medicine, or he was smuggling something much more dangerous. Given the current situation on Nexus Prime, Jazz was betting on the latter. She activated her comm unit, sending a coded message to Boomcrix. Package has arrived. Beginning assessment. The reply came back almost instantly. Understood. Proceed with caution. Jazz checked her weapons one more time and began making her way toward the docking bays. If her suspicions were correct, things were about to get very interesting indeed. Down in the refugee camps, thousands of displaced beings from dozens of different worlds waited in overcrowded shelters, surviving on inadequate food and false hope. They'd been promised relocation, new homes, fresh starts. What they'd gotten instead was indefinite detention and the growing suspicion that the Hegemony had no intention of ever letting them leave. Among them, a young human man named David Park was organizing something the camp administrators would definitely not approve of. David had been a communications specialist in the Federation Navy before the war, and he'd put his skills to good use building a hidden network throughout the camps. Information flowed through his network like water through cracks in stone, invisible to casual observation, but always moving. Word from the docks. His contact, a teenage girl named Sam, whispered as she approached the shelter. New supply ship just arrived. Looks legit, but there's chatter about increased security sweeps. David frowned. Increased security usually meant someone important was getting nervous about something. Any idea what's got them spooked? Rumors about escaped prisoners. Human prisoners. That got David's attention. Escaped human prisoners meant the resistance was still active, still fighting. It also meant the Hegemony was going to crack down even harder on the camps, looking for any sign of collaboration or support. Pass the word, he told Sam. Everyone stays low profile for the next few days. No unnecessary risks, no provocative behavior. We wait and watch. Sam nodded and melted back into the crowd, another refugee among thousands. But her eyes were alert, and she carried David's message with the urgency it deserved. In the camps, information could mean the difference between life and death. As the station's artificial day cycle began to dim toward evening, all the various players in this particular drama were moving into position. Marcus Kane was preparing to begin his medical supply delivery, while secretly planning the most audacious prisoner transfer in recent Galactic history. Jazz Freeman was gathering intelligence and weapons for her own mysterious agenda. Admiral Keth-Var was tightening security and increasing patrols, determined not to let any more human prisoners slip through his fingers. And somewhere in the depths of Nexus Prime, Alex Storm was putting the finishing touches on a plan that would either save 12 lives or get everyone involved killed in spectacular fashion. The funny thing about humans, though, is that they never really cared much about the odds. They had a tendency to look at impossible situations and say, well, let's see what happens. It was a trait that had served them well throughout their history, from their first steps out of their home system to their ongoing struggle against galactic oppression. Tonight, on a massive space station at the edge of civilized space, that particular human characteristic was about to be put to the ultimate test. And the universe, as always, was watching point 3 hours after docking. Marcus Kane discovered that Murphy's Law was apparently a universal constant. Everything that could go wrong was already in the process of going spectacularly, catastrophically wrong. It started when Tessa spotted the patrol ships repositioning around their docking bay. Not the lazy, routine kind of repositioning that happened during shift changes. The deliberate, we know something you don't know kind that made experienced smugglers break out in cold sweats. "Captain," she called softly, "we have got company." 4 Hegemony interceptors just took up positions around the civilian docks. Marcus cursed creatively in 3 different languages. How long until they start boarding inspections? At their current approach vector? 20 minutes, maybe less. Down in the cargo hold, Dr. Torres was making her own unwelcome discoveries. The medical scanner she'd been examining wasn't just any scanner. It was a Hegemony military device, complete with biometric locks and encrypted data storage. More importantly, it contained detailed scans of every prisoner who'd passed through their facility in the past 2 years. "Elena," she whispered urgently, "we need to get this information to the resistance networks. These scans prove everything. The illegal genetic experiments, the forced labor programs, the systematic elimination of entire bloodlines." Elena looked at the device with a mixture of hope and terror. "How do we get it off the station? Even if we make it to the refugee camps, they will search us before we get within a kilometer of the population. We don't take it to the camps." Torres's voice was grim with determination. "We broadcast it, station-wide. Let everyone see what the Hegemony has been doing in their name." Meanwhile, Jazz Freeman had reached a very interesting conclusion about the Vagrant's dream and its cargo. Her surveillance equipment had detected 12 distinct human biosignatures in the ship's cargo bay, all showing stress patterns consistent with people trying very hard not to be found. Either Captain Kane was running the galaxy's most elaborate medical simulation, or he was sitting on the biggest prize the Resistance had seen in months. She activated her comm again. "Boom, Crix, change of plans. The package is bigger than we thought." "How much bigger?" 12 times bigger, and infinitely more valuable. There was a pause. "I am listening." "Meet me at Service Tunnel C7, and bring the heavy equipment. We're going to need it." Alex Storm, meanwhile, had made her way to within 50 meters of the Vagrant's dream without triggering a single security alert. Years of living in Hegemony facilities had taught her exactly how to move through their surveillance networks without being seen. She'd also learned how to improvise weapons from common station materials, how to disable security systems without setting off alarms, and how to disappear in a crowds of refugees when things went sideways. All skills she was about to need desperately. She'd spotted the Hegemony patrol ships moving into position around the docking bays, and she could see the tactical deployment pattern they were using. It was a classic containment formation, designed to prevent any ship from leaving once the boarding operations began. Someone had tipped them off, which meant time was running out fast. Alex pulled out a small device that looked like a standard maintenance tool, but was actually a highly illegal signal jammer. She activated it and began moving toward the Vagrant's dream, staying in the shadows and keeping her movements casual. Just another maintenance worker heading to her next assignment. In his command center, Admiral Keth-Var was coordinating the operation with the cold efficiency that had made him one of the Hegemony's most feared officers. Multiple screens showed real-time surveillance feeds from throughout the station, and his tactical staff were tracking every ship movement, every personnel transfer, every suspicious energy signature. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are detecting some minor interference in the civilian docking sectors. Could be equipment malfunction or atmospheric interference." Keth-Var's scales darkened another shade. Or it could be someone trying to mask their activities. "Increase sensor resolution in all civilian areas, and deploy security teams to every docking bay. I want every ship searched, every cargo manifest verified." "Sir, that's going to cause significant delays for legitimate traffic. Then they will have to be patient." The Admiral's voice carried the kind of authority that ended arguments before they started. "Find me those humans." David Park was having his own crisis management meeting in the depths of the refugee camps. Word had spread through his network about the increased security measures, and people were getting scared. Scared people did unpredictable things, and unpredictable things got people killed. Listen carefully, he told his core group of contacts. Something big is happening on the station. Security is locking everything down, which means someone important is very worried about something. We need to be ready for anything. Sam, the teenage messenger, raised her hand. Ready for what, exactly? They have got us locked in these camps with no weapons, no transport, no communication with the outside. What are we supposed to do if they decide to start eliminating potential troublemakers? It was a good question, and David didn't have a good answer. What he had was a half-formed plan that depended on timing, luck, and the willingness of desperate people to take impossible risks. We do what humans have always done, he said finally. We improvise. Back on the Vagrant's dream, Marcus was running out of options and time. The patrol ships were now close enough that he could see their weapon systems powering up, and station security was requesting permission to board for a routine inspection. In about 10 minutes, 12 very wanted people were going to be discovered in his cargo hold, and everyone involved was going to have a very bad day. Unless, of course, they could pull off the most audacious escape attempt in recent galactic history. Tessa, he called, how fast can you get us unhooked from station power and ready for emergency departure? With our current damage to the port thruster assembly? Maybe 15 minutes if everything goes perfectly. We don't have 15 minutes. We've got maybe 5. Tessa's fingers were already flying over her controls. Then we'd better hope the universe is feeling generous today. In the cargo hold, Dr. Torres was making her own desperate preparations. She'd managed to access the Hegemony scanner's data files and was uploading everything to a portable storage device. Genetic profiles, medical records, facility layouts, guard rotations, everything that could help the Resistance understand the scope of the Hegemony's illegal operations. Elena, I need you to take this, she said, handing over the storage device. If we get separated, if something happens to me, you have to get this information out. Promise me. Elena took the device with shaking hands. What are you planning to do? Something stupid, probably. Torres managed a weak smile. But maybe effective. She was already moving toward the cargo bay's main control panel, the Hegemony scanner still in her hands. If she could interface the device with the ship's communication system, she might be able to broadcast the stored data throughout the station. It would be a one-way trip. The scanner would be destroyed in the process, and anyone caught with it would face immediate execution. But 50,000 station residents would know the truth about what the Hegemony was doing to human prisoners. Meanwhile, Jazz Freeman and Boom Cricks were making their way through the station's service tunnels with enough firepower to level a small city block. The Thorian mercenary had taken Jazz's information about the secret mining operation very seriously indeed, and had decided that helping human refugees escape was a small price to pay for intelligence worth millions of credits. Explain to me again why we're doing this the hard way. Boom Cricks rumbled as they approached the docking bay area. Wouldn't it be simpler to just buy the humans from whoever's holding them? Because, Jazz replied, checking her weapons one more time, sometimes the hard way is the only way that matters. Besides, where's the fun and simple? The Thorian considered this philosophy for a moment. Humans, he muttered. Absolutely insane, all of you. That's what makes us interesting. Alex Storm had reached the Vagrant's dream's docking umbilical and was preparing to board when she spotted 2 figures moving through the service tunnel below. She recognized one of them immediately, Jazz Freeman, notorious arms dealer and general troublemaker. The other was a Thorian mercenary carrying enough weapons to outfit a small army. This was either very good news or very bad news. With humans, it was often difficult to tell the difference until the explosion started. Alex made a quick decision and dropped down to intercept them. Freeman, she called softly. Jazz spun around, weapon drawn, then relaxed slightly when she recognized the scarred woman approaching them. Alex Storm, I thought you were dead. Common mistake. What are you doing here? Probably the same thing you are. Those refugees on the cargo hauler. They're worth more than money to the right people. Alex nodded toward Boom Cricks. And your blue friend? He's invested in the outcome. What about you? Still playing lone wolf? Sometimes the wolf pack approach works better. Alex checked her chronometer. especially when there are Hegemony patrol ships surrounding the target and time running out fast. The three of them looked at each other for a moment, each calculating odds and alternatives. Then Jazz grinned, the kind of expression that usually preceded spectacular property damage. "Well," she said, "this should be interesting." On the Vagrant's Dreams bridge, Marcus was watching his tactical display with the kind of focused intensity usually reserved for defusing antimatter bombs. The patrol ships were moving into final positions. Station security was preparing to board, and his passengers were about to become very expensive corpses. "Captain," Tessa reported, "I'm reading massive power fluctuations from the cargo bay. Something's interfacing with our communication array." Marcus closed his eyes for just a moment. "Dr. Torres, she's trying to broadcast the data. If she activates a station-wide transmission from our ship, every security officer on Nexus Prime is going to know exactly where those signals are coming from. Then we'd better be gone before they get here." Marcus activated the ship's intercom. "All hands, prepare for emergency departure. This is not a drill, people. We are leaving now." In the cargo hold, Dr. Torres had successfully interfaced the Hegemony scanner with the ship's systems and was preparing to upload terabytes of classified information to every communication device on Nexus Prime. Her hands were steady despite knowing that this action would paint a target on her back that would follow her for the rest of her life, however long that turned out to be. "Elena," she called over the sound of warming engines, "whatever happens next, remember that we chose this. We chose to fight instead of hide. That means something." Elena nodded, clutching the backup storage device. "It means we are human." "Exactly." Dr. Torres activated the upload sequence, and 50,000 beings throughout Nexus Prime suddenly found their personal communication devices flooding with classified Hegemony documents. Medical records showing illegal genetic experiments. Facility reports detailing systematic torture and elimination of prisoners. Financial records proving that the refugee relief programs were elaborate fraud schemes designed to generate profits from suffering. The reaction was immediate and explosive in the refugee camps. David Park watched his hidden communication network light up with incoming data streams. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to smile. "Sam," he called to his young messenger, "remember when you asked what we were supposed to do if they decided to eliminate troublemakers?" "Yeah. Change of plans. We're not waiting for them to come to us." Throughout Nexus Prime, the revelation of systematic Hegemony war crimes was causing exactly the kind of civil unrest that Admiral Keth-Var had spent his entire career trying to prevent. Protests were breaking out in multiple sectors. Security forces were being overwhelmed by crowds demanding answers. And worst of all, the evidence was spreading beyond the station through the Galactic communication networks. "Sir," his aide Pip Nix reported nervously, "we are receiving priority messages from Hegemony High Command. They want an immediate explanation for the data breach." Keth-Var's scales had gone completely black, a color that usually preceded someone's violent death. "Find the source of that transmission. Find it now. We have traced it to the civilian docking bays, sir. Specifically to a cargo vessel called the Vagrant's Dream. Then destroy it. Sir, there are still civilians in that area. Station protocols require—" "I don't care about protocols." The Admiral's roar silenced the entire command center. "Those humans have just started a war, and wars have casualties." But even as he gave the order to fire on the cargo ship, Keth-Var knew it was too late. The information was already spreading through the Galactic networks, being copied and redistributed faster than any censorship program could contain it. The Hegemony's carefully constructed public image was collapsing in real time. That on the Vagrant's Dream, Marcus felt the ship shudder as the docking clamps released and the engines came online. They were committed now, no going back, no second chances. "Tessa, get us out of here. Maximum burn, evasive maneuvers, and pray that our engines hold together long enough to reach the hyperspace jump point. What about the patrol ships? We will deal with them when we have to." As the cargo hauler began pulling away from Nexus Prime, Alex Storm, Jazz Freeman, and Boomcrix were implementing their own version of an escape plan. It involved controlled explosions, strategic power outages, and the kind of creative chaos that humans excelled at producing. The service tunnel connects directly to the main power distribution center, Alex explained as they moved through the station's infrastructure. If we can cause a massive power fluctuation at exactly the right moment, the patrol ships will lose target lock just long enough for the cargo hauler to reach minimum safe distance for hyperspace jump. Jazz finished. I like it. Insane, but I like it. Boone Crix shook his massive head. Remind me again why I associate with humans. Because we're never boring. Both women replied simultaneously. The explosion, when it came, was visible from 3 sectors away. The lights went out across half of Nexus Prime. Emergency systems kicked in throughout the station, and in the confusion that followed, a battered cargo hauler managed to slip past 4 Hegemony patrol ships and disappear in a hyperspace 0.6 hours later. The Vagrant's Dream dropped out of hyperspace near a small, unremarkable planet in an unclaimed system. The 12 refugees in the cargo hold were finally free to breathe station air again. Dr. Torres's data had reached resistance cells throughout the galaxy, and Marcus Kane had earned himself a permanent place on the Hegemony's most wanted list. Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck, looking out at the stars, still clutching the backup storage device that contained proof of everything they'd endured. "So what happens now?" she asked Dr. Torres. "Now we make sure this information reaches every human colony, every resistance cell, every independent government in the galaxy. We make sure everyone knows what the Hegemony really is." And then Torres smiled, and for the first time in months, it reached her eyes. "Then we do what humans have always done when faced with tyranny. We fight back." Behind them, Marcus was already plotting their next destination, a neutral world where refugee testimony would be heard, where war crimes evidence would be preserved, where the fight for human freedom could continue. The funny thing about humans, as the galaxy was learning, was that they never knew when to quit. They took impossible odds as personal challenges. They turned defeats into victories through sheer stubborn determination. And when pushed to the edge of extinction, they didn't just survive, they found ways to thrive. On Nexus Prime, Admiral Keth-Var was discovering this truth the hard way. The refugee camps were in open revolt, his security forces were overwhelmed, and Hegemony High Command was demanding explanations he didn't have. The humans had slipped through his fingers, taking with them the most damaging intelligence leak in galactic history. But in the depths of space, aboard a battered cargo hauler carrying 12 freed prisoners and the truth about systematic oppression, the real victory was just beginning. Because the truth, once released, has a way of spreading faster than any weapon and cutting deeper than any blade. And humans, as the universe was learning, were very good at truth-telling. The war for human freedom had just begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.